What if I told you that every night, as you dive into your screens, you lose touch with reality? The virtual world, shining with bright lights, lures you with its perfection. Here, among the clouds of unreal emotions and ideal images, it's easy to forget about the gray corridors of the metropolis, about how hard it is to breathe amidst the mundane. On the streets, where every step resonates with despair, people hide behind masks and illusions, while their true dreams and desires remain lost in the noise of code and pixels. Memories of real happiness are overshadowed by images created for universal approval. The tally of likes and comments becomes the meaning of life. And this addiction, prisoner of bewildering standards, pulls you down, making you forget that the feeling of happiness sometimes lies in simplicity, in laughter, in a rainy day, in each breath without a particular purpose. It seems that the habit of living in a world created by algorithms has become the moral norm. However, one day amidst the whirlwind of virtual noise, we may remember that beyond these screens, genuine connections exist. Remaining human in a world of faceless avatars is the real challenge. So should we reconcile ourselves to this detachment when freedom requires courage? By rejecting the staged spectacle, we can open new horizons. By returning to our own feelings, to sincere desires, we may find the strength to challenge the system that makes us hide. What if the true path to happiness is woven from contradictions, from struggling against our own illusions? Let us not be afraid to delve into our consciousness, to revisit our lost individuality, so that in the end, we can see that the real world is indeed our truly priceless gift. Do you know what your reflection looks like in the world of social media? It is not the reality you see every day. We all strive to show the perfect self, but behind that shine lie sorrows and doubts. Imagine scrolling through your feed, vibrant photos, flawless images, moments of happiness. You scroll and wonder, why doesn't my day look the same? This comparison pulls us away from our true selves, making us hide our flaws as if they were secrets that cannot be revealed. As you get lost in the lottery of likes and comments, something much more valuable begins to fade: your individuality. You want to be perfect, and perhaps that is indeed possible. But at what cost? You start to conform to others' expectations, losing touch with who you really are. What if I told you that this idealization is not only useless but can also be detrimental? With every swipe on the screen, you risk losing a part of your originality, forever fading into the shadow of your own photos. In our quest to create right images, we forget that flaws make us unique. How much time are you willing to invest in creating an illusion when the real self might be far more interesting than your one perfect photo? In answering this question, it is important to reflect on what we truly value. Perhaps it is time to stop striving for the ideal, to restart the path to self-acceptance. Who are you really beyond the screens? Do you know that in the age of distant communication, we have become lonelier than ever? Sitting in a noisy company, the main character catches himself thinking that while others around him are laughing and exchanging jokes, he cannot be part of it. Deep exhaustion is evident in his eyes. He looks at his phone screen, which displays hundreds of unread messages, and realizes that all these virtual contacts cannot replace real communication. He raises his glass, listens to the conversations, but the sounds around him blend into something unbearably distant. Each time his friend laughs at another joke, he feels his isolation grow. How can this be? Flashes through his mind. There are so many people around, yet I still feel lonely. He tries to smile, to engage in conversation, but a storm rages inside him. He has friends, but none of them know how he feels. It seems that it doesn't even matter to them. He leaves the establishment, leaving no trace. The streets glance around, and even the people passing by remain strangers. He should be happy, but instead he feels a lack of connection to the world around him. A sad smile appears on his face. The evolution of technology has given him the ability to communicate with dozens, but this captured space still lacks soul. What is really happening with human connections? He asks himself as he walks into the shadows of the evening city, where the streetlights only emphasize his loneliness hidden beneath a mask of communication. Are you ready to learn the shocking truth about how we build our relationships? Let's examine why marriage often turns into a mere contract rather than a deep union of two hearts. Imagine you have printed graphs and numbers on your table. One partner starts laying out their demands and the other responds, "All right, what do I get in return?" We begin discussing a deal. "I'll cook dinners, you support me in my career, and if you start earning more, will you do everything yourself?" It resembles trading on the stock exchange. Partners set terms, create stakes, and often change the rules as the game goes on. Where are the genuine feelings in this? Most likely there is no room for true trust in this model of love. Think about it. How can you be on the same wavelength if instead of sharing a life, you only have steps laid out in advance? Every "I love you" starts to sound like a clause in a contract with no space for spontaneity and sincerity. Why do we trust these deals? Because it's convenient. Convenience should not be confused with deep relationships based on mutual understanding and emotional closeness. Discussing how we will divide responsibilities easily erects a wall between partners, and suddenly behind it stand two lonely people living under one roof. But here's the paradox. Even if you achieve the perfect balance in deals, the question remains, what happens to your feelings? They begin to fade, right? Dishonesty in relationships breeds dissatisfaction and ultimately disappointment. What's the solution? We need to reject a mechanical approach to love and introduce something real into our relationships. How could you rewrite your contracts so that there is no room for deceit? Let's think about this together and find a path to more genuine connections. What if I told you that you create your own limitations? He sat at the table examining the tiniest details of his social profiles. Every notification, every message, like bright lights on an abandoned road, leading him away from what was important. Inside him, a passionate desire to break this chain throbbed. He dreamed of freeing himself from the opinions of others, from standards that had nothing to do with him. Gathering his thoughts, he looked at his phone screen. His heart raced. This decision was a true challenge. He knew that behind this simple action lay a whole world of possibilities. His hands trembled slightly as he tapped the delete button. One move, and he was free. Clenching his fists, he felt all worries and doubts leave him. This was not just deleting profiles. This was an act of protest against expectations. He had finally decided to live his life, realizing that only he was responsible for his choices. It was as if with every second the clenching of his fists brought him more confidence, as if he were experiencing a moment of self-awareness. What if staying true to himself was the only way to move forward? Every step, every choice, this was true power. Liberation became the beginning. He knew the time to act had come. What if I told you that true freedom begins where the world of technology ends? These words sound like manna from heaven, but they are not just a phrase. It is a path I have chosen to walk, leaving digital dust behind. And here I am, walking the empty streets of the city where time seems to have stopped. Each step echoes my thoughts. I see myself in the reflections of shop windows. Not just an image, but many versions of me wandering through a labyrinth of memories. The street, filled with ghosts of past days, leads me to unexplored places within myself. Why are we so drawn to the screen? I asked myself this question while wandering through the shadows of the night city. Every sound is a whisper, every turn a mystery. I feel freedom filling my heart when I realize that sometimes to find oneself, one must get lost in familiar yet forgotten corners. And each step is a discovery, as if I am unlocking doors to what has long been locked inside. Passing by old buildings, I remember how many years ago I dreamed of becoming someone else. Now I wonder, who am I really? Disconnecting from modern chaos allows me to hear the quiet yet persistent desires. It is not just an inner voice. It is the cry of a soul that has long been silenced. Looking back, I see how familiar roots have led me into an endless loop. It's like an infinite screen projecting life, but I realized I can't watch it forever. I am here, on these empty streets, and perhaps it is here I will discover my true essence. Isn't it amazing to find your deepest answers in silence? I keep walking, and the streets change shape, slowly turning into landscapes of my memories. It's like a journey through time, where each step is a choice, and each choice is an opportunity to become who I always wanted to be. Here, amidst this silence, I begin to understand that many lack inner freedom. But it is precisely this that will lead me to the real. Breaking free from the chains of the outer world, I have found the key to myself. Are you ready to learn the truth about how easy it is to lose yourself in the digital world? At a noisy party among laughter and streets filled with bright lights from screens, he stands on the edge. His friends, laughing and winking, raise their phones, inviting him to re-enter the virtual world, a world he has left behind. Come on, are you really leaving us over this nonsense? One jokes, but there's a serious note in his voice. His heart races and thoughts swirl. Why is it so important for everyone that I be like them? He feels the pressure of his friends' gazes. Their mocking remarks strike him like a complex melody in the background. You won't be in the chats. You won't be able to keep up. You won't be part of life, they say, raising their smartphones like a toast to friendship rooted in virtuality. He wants to scream, I want to be here, real and not a part of your madness. They don't understand. He feels a desire to be himself bursting out of him and not just a rapper confined in a digital circle. But behind the walls of this choice lies fear. It's just one step back into a world that whispers and do it, and you'll be with us again. And now he faces a choice, for his own freedom or to return to the illusion where friendship is measured in likes and comments. But is it worth being part of something that doesn't align with him? Every laugh, every encouragement from friends is an effort to bring him back, to pull him into the digital web. Their threat is exclusion. If you don't join, you'll be left out. They don't understand that his choice is not just a protest. It's a quest for self in a world full of digital manipulations. How hard it is to break free from social norms when they act as sturdy walls in your home. His heart wavers between fear and determination. He realizes that stepping outside this cage might be easier than he thought, but that thought might become his last step to freedom. What would happen if you stopped limiting yourself? Imagine that within you lies an unexplored ocean of possibilities just waiting to be discovered. It was like a flash of lightning. In one moment, I realized that years had been spent stifling my desires and dreams had turned into mere vague echoes of childhood. With vibrant colors, I began to engage in art. Every touch of the brush on the canvas was like a liberation from shackles. I wasn't just painting. I was creating my inner universe. Every line, every drop of paint became a reflection of my experiences and desires. I wasn't afraid to make mistakes because I understood that life is born in those mistakes. The moment I first picked up clay, it was cold and unruly. But as soon as I began to mold, I felt my soul blossom. I started telling stories through form and color, and each piece unveiled one secret after another. It was not just creativity. It was self-expression. It was a voice that finally spoke out. Every moment spent in creation empowered me. I began to feel satisfaction in knowing that my life was unlike anyone else's. In this process, I found not only my true essence, but also a wellspring of inspiration that did not run dry. I learned to appreciate every stroke, every detail, understanding that they are me. It was time to let go of the fear that had held me captive for too long. I began to invite people into my world through exhibitions and workshops, and every response, every reaction added new shades to my life's canvas. The realization that art can connect, inspire, and heal became my new guide. And now I want to ask you a question. What if you freed yourself from all limitations and unveiled your true dream? That's right. Don't be afraid to create. Each of us is capable of more than we think. Each of us can create something that changes not only ourselves, but also the world around us. What will happen if you stop limiting yourself? A group of like-minded individuals gathers in the central square of the city. They stand in a huge circle dressed in bright, unconventional outfits. A fire burns in their eyes. Victoria, a young girl with a rebellious spirit, raises her hands in the air, calling everyone to pay attention. A strange yet attention-grabbing performance begins. We often cage ourselves in comfort zones. Every day we follow rules that we have created ourselves. All this time we have rejected our true potential. What holds you back? Society? The opinions of others? She glances at the crowd, noticing the polite detachment of people dressed in gray, familiar clothes, with blank faces, devoid of spark in their eyes. She continues, her voice growing more assertive. Isn't it time to free ourselves from unnecessary shackles? It's time to step over fear and start living a true life. Are you ready to be yourself? Or do you prefer to remain in the shadows? At that moment, other participants join her, each juggling, dancing, or simply shouting about their freedom. They show that anyone can be themselves, you just have to want it. This is not just a performance, it's a cry of the soul, a call to action. Outside, the circular square starts filling with onlookers. Some laugh, some whisper, while others listen attentively, clenching their fists, ready for change. Victoria regards them as the only hope that could change their lives. Each of you is unique. Everyone has their dreams, their goals, their freedom. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't. Forge your own path, even if it differs from others. As if under her influence, solitary figures begin to appear in the distance, also starting to express their individuality. The crowd seems to disperse, existing in a unified surge of a desire for freedom. Let's challenge the limitations that we have created for ourselves. Show that you are free, and when you do, don't be afraid to inspire others. Your time is now. At that moment, all the like-minded individuals gather around Victoria, raising their hands in a sign of unity. This is not just an event, it is a symbol of change. Victoria looks into the eyes of those gathered, emphasizing their strength and will for freedom. It is time for change. It is time to inspire others. Anyone can step out of the shadows and make their presence known. What if I told you that happiness is simply your personal decision, not the routine expectations of society? Recently, I was sitting with a friend in a cafe and we discussed what truly makes us happy. He looked at me and asked, "You know that most of us see happiness as something external, right?" I pondered. Have we all succumbed to this? Chasing successful careers, social statuses, ideal relationships, all to conform to others' ideas of happiness. But wait, should it really depend on others' opinions? At that moment, I recalled how, as a child, I was utterly happy playing outside with friends, building sandcastles and worrying about nothing. Why do we lose that simplicity as we age? It's like finding forgotten toys in an old box. They might not be worth much, but they bring such warm feelings. I explained to my friend that it's important to find that genuine source of joy within ourselves. When was the last time you asked yourself, what truly brings me joy? Maybe it's walks in the fresh air, reading a book, talking with loved ones, or simply spending time alone with yourself. We are so accustomed to viewing the world through the lens of others' expectations that we sometimes drift away from ourselves. Don't let others' opinions define your life. True happiness is the sincere choice you make every day. Why not start right now? Understand that the sources of your happiness are not money, not prestige, but the little joys and moments that color your life. How can you rethink your happiness today? What if I told you that all changes start with one person? Imagine how one person, armed only with their dreams and determination, can create a reality they have longed for their entire life. They started small, with sketches of ideas, with a spark that ignited into a blazing fire. In their struggles, they were not alone. They found like-minded individuals, fellow dreamers ready to take destiny into their own hands. Together, they created a cooperative of ideas where everyone could speak freely, showcasing their talents. A place where art, technology, and creativity converged in a unified surge. Every morning, they gathered in a cozy space, filling it with the vibrant colors of their dreams. They were not just working on projects. They exchanged energy and inspiration, uplifting each other. The person with a guitar shared music. A designer showcased bold sketches. A programmer presented their developments. And all of this happened in an atmosphere of trust and support. Together, they were not just creating. They were changing the society around them. Their work became a voice resonating in the hearts of others. And the more people united under this idea, the stronger the wave of change became. The community transformed into a powerful engine of progress, where everyone could impact the collective mission and inspire new achievements. This is not just a story about creation. It is a lesson on how the collective spirit can overcome any obstacles. What if joint efforts are the key to true transformation in society? They felt this power daily, and with each new project, they proved that together they could change the world, filling it with bold ideas and bright dreams. Are you ready to learn the truth about how often we find ourselves trapped in manipulation? Imagine standing in the center of a crowded square where everyone around you is shouting and demanding that you do what society deems necessary. It seems like there is no way out, and everyone is looking at you with disapproval. But what if I told you that it is precisely in these moments that you can learn to say no and follow your beliefs? When everyone around demands your obedience and adherence to their desires, remember, your life is your game and you write the rules. Why is it so important to resist manipulation? Because it not only affects your decisions, it concerns your life. You may have faced situations where friends are pushed to skew opinions to fit the group. Are you familiar with those conversations where someone tries to impose their ideals as if the truth in plural begins and ends with a single opinion? In those moments, you become not just a spectator, but a participant. And if you remain silent, your thoughts go unacknowledged. But how do you escape this trap? One seemingly simple way is to recognize when manipulation begins. You need to listen not only to what is said, but also to your own feelings and intuition. It's time to shed illusions and find your truth. This can be frightening, but this path leads to inner confidence. Remember that time when you faced pressure from friends and everyone expected you to give in? How did you feel? Were you in conflict with yourself? That is the moment when you should not be afraid to stand up for your boundaries. Confidently say no if it goes against your principles. And in that moment, your true strength arises. Not to give in. Every time it seems that there are no more exits, remember, you can shed not only your doubts, but also the imposed opinions of others. Allow yourself to be yourself and make decisions based on your feelings and thoughts. Thank yourself for the strength with which you can stand tall and say, "This is not for me." Believe in yourself. Only you know what is truly important to you. Learn to recognize manipulation and resist it, and then no social pressure will break your will. Your life is your decision, and only you decide how to live it. What happens when you decide to return to those who seek freedom just like you? Dim light, a faint smell of coffee, and laughter of friends. Here they are, familiar faces who have also gone through the pains of doubt and searching for meaning. Eyes meet, and in that moment the distance that stood between you disappears. I thought this whole life was just a routine, but now I realize that freedom begins here within us, says someone from the group. And this remark overshadows everything. The heart fills with warmth, as if embraced by the warmth of the sun's rays after a long winter. Each friend begins to share their stories. I quit my job and it turned out to be the boldest decision of my life. Tears of joy and laughter fill the space between you. The feeling of unity grows stronger like a warm blanket in cold times. Everyone understands they are not alone, they are together on this path. I started painting, someone says. At first it was just a hobby, but now I see it as my calling. As he says this, he smiles as though standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to jump into the unknown. And you realize that each of you is taking a step into a world where dreams matter. This evening is filled with emotions. Smiles that were once hidden beneath masks of everyday life blossom. These are not just meetings. This is our space for growth, someone says. And you feel their words penetrate you, sending chills down your spine. As the clinking of glasses and promises of future meetings begin to fill the air, the understanding arises. It is these connections that make you stronger and allow you to embrace new challenges every day. Here among friends, you are not afraid to dream. Every wound from the past, every fear fades against the backdrop of this new reality. In such moments, you realize that self-actualization is not just about achieving goals, but about those who walk with you. Now you have comrades who will support you in difficult times. This is the beginning of a new chapter, and this chapter is called Freedom Together. What if I tell you that your freedom begins with self-acceptance? On the rooftop of this metropolis, where thousands of lights spread above, he stood, feeling the wind flow freely around him. The sunset painted the sky in bright shades, as if nature itself welcomed his triumph. It was that moment when every step, every challenge, every mistake suddenly came together into one whole, his personal great success. Emotions surged within him. He remembered how many years ago he was afraid to even dream of being himself. Every no, every "you can't" pierced his soul like sharp thorns. But now, looking at the horizon, he understood that all these obstacles only tempered his spirit. Freedom is not just the absence of shackles. It is the courage to follow one's own path, even when the whole world says no. I climbed to this rooftop not to judge myself for past mistakes, but to celebrate my story. Every failure is not the end, but a lesson that ultimately brought me here. I am stronger now than ever, he thought, filling with pride. And watching the sunset, he felt the strength inside him growing. This freedom sparkled in his eyes like the last rays of the sun disappearing over the horizon. He knew that his victory was not just his success. It was a call to each of us. Everyone can find their true freedom if they only believe in themselves and accept their flaws. From this moment on, I choose to look forward with hope and faith in my abilities. The sunset is not the end. It is just the beginning of a new day, he whispered to himself, ready for the new challenges that awaited him beyond the horizon. Inspiration filled his heart, and the world around suddenly played in new colors. Anyone can become the architect of their own destiny.